And we are recording with, I keep calling you doctor. I don't know if it's doctor or Mr. George Wentz, Dr. George Wentz, astronaut general George
There
Wentz
you
on
go.
one of
I'm a
them.
doctor. I'm a doctor of law.
Doctor,
I'm
lawyer George.
a juris doctor.
Regardless of what it is, today's July 8th, 2024. Man, I just completely just blanked out for a moment. About 12:10 p.m. Eastern time. We were just chatting beforehand. Baz put me in touch with you. Um, and what I tell all the guests is I'm not playing with my phone. I'm just posting the live link so people will start watching. So I'm not just that millennial. But we were just talking about traumas and life struggles and wait, what's going on? How come it's not live streaming? What's going on? Hold on. Am I not live streaming? What is going on? Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. I don't know here. I just paused it. I don't know what just happened. Or it's not streaming. Thank you for your patience, man.
It's all
You-
good.
yeah, I don't, I've never had this happen.
It's probably the
This
CCP.
and now it is working. I don't. Oh, I messed up the privacy. I made it so it was hidden. That's why I couldn't find it. All right. Your rough start, false start. Blow the whistle. Everyone go back to the starting line. All right. Three, two, one. And we are starting again with Dr. George Wentz on Monday, July 8th, 2024 at 12:09 p.m. Eastern time. So I was looking for the live link to post and it wasn't appearing and I didn't realize that I had made it unlisted. I've never done that before, so in the true spirit of still unpacking and that, the beautiful experience that we just all love of moving, clearly I'm still completely discombobulated. As you can see, there's just crap all around me. But you do have a superlative in that you are the first show in the newest studio. There's been the first 400 episodes, and then from 400 to 900, and then 900 to 1500. You're the first guest in the fourth studio. So I don't know if that's worth anything.
That's
Probably
a
not.
great time. Just a great honor. You know,
Yeah,
we call it the George Wentz Memorial Studio.
it is. It
Yeah.
is.
There we go.
I get a big bronze bust of you. People are
Yeah.
like, who's that? Is that your dad? I'd be like, no, it's a guy I had on my show yesterday.
Right. Right. Let me get
What?
a statue like Rocky Balboa.
Yeah,
Of the.
with the eight pack abs, just
There
ripped.
you
Who
go.
is that? That's I don't know. My friend Baz put me in touch with him. Like that's not wasn't like
That
a
would be
father
more like
figure.
Baz. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we'll get a bust of Baz, and then
Yeah.
I'll just lob Baz's head off, and then
There
I'll
you
put
go.
you on there. Mr. Wentz, introduce yourself, please, while I post the live link and try to
All
get
right.
your
Great.
bearings.
So I'm George Wentz. I'm an attorney. Grew up in outskirts of Baltimore, Maryland. Went to University of Delaware undergrad. Went to Georgetown Law School. Went on to become an international attorney, but then took a turn back to sort of constitutional law when Ronald Reagan appointed me to a position in the Federal Trade Commission when I was a young buck. And so I've sort of always had one foot in con law and been known as a sort of a constitutional lawyer and scholar, as well as international trade, international business, particularly focusing on maritime as well as energy. So at this point in time, I'm a partner in a law firm called the Davalier Law Group out of New Orleans, Louisiana, and I started an office after I had a bunch of things that I did after Katrina to stand the city back up, and then in about 5 years after Katrina, started looking for a bailout so we didn't get blown out again in hurricanes. And we eventually ended up in a little town in North Idaho called Sandpoint. It's in the just on the edge of the Canadian Rockies. We're about 50 miles south of Canada on a big lake with a huge ski resort. And once we got here, I just went, okay, I'm not leaving. And we have not had a hurricane hit us since we moved here. I'd just like to say that. And so that strategy worked. And we've been here ever since. So now we have an office. The law firm has an office here in Sandpoint. We have an office in New Orleans, of course, and we have an office in Phoenix, Arizona. And we do a wide scope of different types of legal work. And then about 5 years ago, I started an energy company. And we have something called Make a Difference Energy, Mad Energy, where we're rolling out high-tech solutions to existing problems in the energy field that we think are superior to anything else going on. So a lot of what I do and a lot of what I am about is promoting freedom, independence, and self-reliance for the citizens of the United States. And that's why I get involved in issues like the mask case, which we litigated, where we overturned the mask mandate on airplanes and in airports, and case recently where we were successful in, so far at least, in protecting employees of the largest school district in the United States from being forced to take the COVID-19 vaccine. So those are types of things that we do, and that's kind of who I am.
Well, we were just talking beforehand. Obviously, well, actually, so I want to pick up on what we were saying beforehand about, turning trauma into something good, and
Yeah.
you kind of give the middle finger to the devil, and you had said,
Yeah.
if you had become bitter and resentful, the devil would have won, and so just to kind of pick up on that part, less for the podcast, but more for just the I guess completion of our conversation was. I actually did become very bitter, very resentful for the first 2 years after. I mean, I think it was nothing short of like just becoming the worst person I ever could have been. Just, I mean, angry. I mean, from the antithesis of like pre-med self-reliance, like rarely drank, to just blamed everyone, angry at the world. Woe is me. No one understands the cross I'm carrying. Like, screw everyone. And I did for 2 years. And then I moved home to my parents' house because I'd become a total deadbeat in 2016. But actually, up to Maryland. You're from there. So the podcast actually started in Ocean City, Maryland. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, in
My
2019.
father built the bridges that you drove over
Yeah.
there.
I did security at Secrets, that giant bar. I did that back in 2011, but I lived at home for 5 years and I started the podcast at the very end of it. But my point is 2 years after my brother died and then 5 years living at home, it really wasn't until the last year living at home that I built the podcast. And honestly, unintentionally, well, I started the podcast. It actually kind of started pulling me out of like the rut. Like when I first moved home, it was like the big thing. It was like got off drugs, got off alcohol, got off pills, but I was still pretty angry, messed up, just really, bad scenario. And when I started the podcast, it actually was like, well, if I'm going to be talking to guests, like, I can't be anxious. And so I'm like, I got to get back into working out. I've been working out my whole life. I took time after my brother, but I was like, I got to start going to the gym in the morning. And then it was like, man, if I don't get a full night's sleep, I'm not good at holding a conversation. I'm angsty. I lose my patience. I got to get a full night's sleep. And then it was like, when you're in front of a camera, you can't have like long, greasy hair and like, acne. And I was really bad at like picking at scabs. I was like, I gotta stop all that. And then it's just one thing. It's like, man, dead air is so awkward when you're sitting there and the conversation. I'd be like, I gotta have like a repository of like information. And I didn't want to talk about the news because that always just, gave me like, just stress. So I was like, I got to start reading. So I started listening to an audiobook, like do an hour a day. And all these little things that slowly pulled me out of it. And so, just for the thoroughness of our conversation, I did become bitter. I did become very toxic, and I saw what that was. And no, the devil won that. But I've
Right.
turned it around and held up a middle finger to him, and I like where it is now.
But not in the long run. The devil didn't win in the long run,
No,
thank
no, no.
God.
I'm no, I've
Right?
no, I've got him on the ropes right
Yeah.
now. Yeah, no.
No, no. And you were how old were you when your brother unfortunately
I
passed?
was I was 23. That was April 15th, 2014.
Yeah, that's tough. When you're young, it is looking back on my life as a young man, I had I was trying cases, I was trying big cases, I was driving hard, I was representing Lloyd's of London in large
Oh wow.
subrogation matters. I was all over the world doing things. as a young attorney, trying cases in federal court, state court, things of this nature. And so I was hard driving, and like you know, we would work hard. We would say hoot with the owls and fly with the eagles, you know. And so we would party all night long, and then we would be in the office at 7:30 in the morning, you know, and we would go at it again. And you know, I literally, just like I told all my kids to do, I was grabbing life by the throat each and every day when I woke up, right? But unfortunately, you know, what happens when you do that type of stuff is you start to, you know, every single day at like 7 or 8, you know, you have a pop, then you have another pop, then you have another pop, you know, and then eventually it catches up with you. And, you know, and it caught up with me just like it did with you. And I had a long, hard road to overcome that. And
Mhm.
the thing that did it for me was my wife left and took our child. I had a little girl with my first wife, and she was 2 years old, and she moved to Colorado. I was still living in the Baltimore area, and this is post Reagan administration, and so I responded beautifully, just like you did. I think if I added up the years that you mentioned, it was 7 that you were better. I did better. I beat you by 1 year. I went on an 8-year drunk, and
Mhm.
I just it was amazing. I blew up to like 320. I was big
Yeah.
man on campus. I was, you
Yeah.
know, like there was never enough beer, you
Nope.
know. It was just one of those things, and I had to actually go, you know, in and like fall on my knees, and through the grace of God, I found some really wonderful, wonderful mentors in AA. And, you know, I actually went through the whole 12-step
Mm.
program, and it's now I found my wonderful wife, Susan, and she had 3 beautiful daughters. I had my daughter, and together we had a son, and our son is now 27. And so I quit drinking, you know, basically when I met her, and it's been, you know, and it's funny, so now it's coming up on like 29 years. But um but what happens is you can, and you sort of describe this through your podcast, you know, you can quit drinking, you can quit taking drugs, but the problem is that then you have to figure out how to live, right? Right.
Oh yeah,
You
no,
have to
it
decide, okay, I got all this time, I'm not spending time drinking, I'm not spending time playing video games, what
don't
am I
know
going
what
to
to
do? I
do.
might have to actually improve my brain,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
might actually get some causes. I might actually contribute to society now,
Yeah.
you know. And
That's
that's where it goes, you know. I'll hit the gym instead of the bar. I'll read a book instead of the bar. I'll think. I'll write. You know. And so when you can, I mean, you beat me by a year, you know. But I do think when we're young, we just, man, it's just like so hard to take those blows. Like I just never thought I would get divorced, you know. In those days,
yeah.
divorce wasn't as prevalent in those days. I was born in 1958, so you know, it was a big deal for me, and it took me a long time to recover. And you know, the devil very, very, very nearly won. And God knows some of the stupid, ridiculous stuff that I did as a young man. Oh my gracious me! It's
Oh,
just amazing I'm alive when I look back.
I'm very open on the podcast. There's still things I don't even bring up and call. I look back at like my first year of college, and I'm like, you know, everyone's like, I was crazy when I'm younger, and like, I don't even say that because it's not even fun. I look back when I was a freshman in college, and I'm like, I mean, I don't even know how. I'm like,
Yeah,
statistically, what are the odds that I'm alive? But
right.
like, no, it's. I mean, I
I'm right.
still what?
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, it's
Statistically, I mean, it's amazing I'm here, you know, and that's why I
mad.
always say the grace of God, man, the grace of
No,
God.
but really, and it's and like I moved out of my parents' house around like episode like 500 ish, and I still drank occasionally, and like last fall I ended up getting just crazy anxiety, and I went on a medication, and I
Hmm.
got completely addicted to it, and I hadn't been on like a date right after my brother died. I went on benzos, which as bad as they are, I still think that those probably are the after a traumatic event, there's really you can't operate. You every it's just every second of every day. You're just like my brother killed himself. My brother like you have to numb yourself. It's a long road back to getting off of them, and that's a problem. But I went on gabapentin last fall, and without even realizing it, got completely addicted to it. And I went through such like a bad psychosis in January of this year, trying to withdraw of it, that I actually checked myself in to a psych ward. And like some people will be like, yeah, you went to an inpatient facility. I'm like, no, call it what it was. Like I went to a psych ward. Like they took my phone, they gave me baggy pants and socks, and I think I was the only person there that went voluntarily,
Yeah.
but which was kind of funny. Everyone else is like, yeah, this was court ordered. I was brought here in like a
Yeah.
police car. And I'm like, oh, I parked outside, but like, whatever. But I went there for like 10 days. And what
Yeah.
you described of, kind of falling to your knees is you do get to that point when you're on like a little cot and there's someone checking on you literally every 15 minutes. Like
Right.
I say every 15 minutes, I mean, they have like a timer and and
Yeah.
it's eye to eye contact. They
Yeah.
don't go, are you in there? If you're in the shower, they're like, put your hand. And so you like
Right.
put it over I 15 minutes, 4 times
Right.
an hour, 24 hours a day,
They did for
nonstop.
you. They did for you what they were supposed to do with Epstein, right?
Correct, correct. The problem is I didn't have an occult temple on a Caribbean island where I
Yeah.
systematically set up and orchestrated the rape of children by politicians, senators, billionaires, so that I could control the world through a intelligence network. That was my mistake. My mistake was
That was it.
I had a shitty podcast, and I should have done that, and that would have been fun. But no,
There
um,
you go.
but the
You
grace
always
of
know you're in trouble when they take your shoelaces and your belt away, right?
yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
it's so fun. It was so fun because I was like. That was like the most like cooperative thing. They'd give me, like a Benadryl or something, and I'd take it. And I just knew from like TV shows. I'd like open my mouth and show them. They're like, you're like the least at risk person here. But they're like, thank you. And I'll be like, I don't know. I just, just going along with it.
Right.
But the point
Right.
is kind of falling to your knees and
Yep.
going. It's one thing when you take that blow at 23, when you've checked yourself in at 33, and you're
Right.
like, huh. And so
Well,
have dropped everything. But to what you were saying, the point of saying all of this is, I'd gone on stints of sobriety before, and very quick. At first, it's great because you're like there are no lows, but then you get bored. And I decided to stick with it this time. I was like, let's just see what happens after a couple months. And no, you're right. You start going, well, I got all this free time. Like, guess I should read more. I, maybe I should, I don't know, hit the gym harder.
yeah.
It's
Yeah, and then what you really find is that I think what keeps people sober is the 12th step of the 12 steps, which is giving back to others,
hmm
right? It's actually a big circle, and so once you start giving back to the community, once you start giving back to others, once you start helping other people all the time, you realize that you don't have time, and people are depending on you, and you need to perform, right? And so you need to get up every day and do it. And it's like a lot of times I sponsor kids that are trying to quit drinking and stuff, and it's basically like I said, putting down the poison is not the hard part. Learning how to live after you do it is
you
the
don't know
hard.
what to do.
You don't know what to do, and so I always tell them, look, get a dog,
Yeah.
get a dog, because if you got to take care of that dog, you got to get up, you got to put the dog outside, you got to walk the dog, you got to feed the dog, you got to care for the dog. The dog is going to lick your face if you don't wake up by 9 o'clock in the morning because you had too much to drink the night before. So
Yeah.
it's these kinds of little things. But anyway,
Yeah. Yeah. And
uh,
I
I didn't think that we would be talking about AA so much here, Tommy, but
who
it's
cares,
cool
man?
with me, man.
We talked yesterday. I said we're gonna wing it. Like we're gonna wing it, and like, but that is it's kind of learning what to do with that time, and then also, and then you start to occupy yourselves and do things and give back, and then you kind of come to like another bridge where it's like you're not gonna fill every moment of every day. And sometimes there is just boredom and free time. And then so then you have to ask yourself, it's like the idea of like, you know, working out and dieting. It's suffer the pain of discipline, don't eat that extra sandwich, go to the gym, or suffer the pain of regret. I can't believe I ate that. Why didn't I go to the gym? It's pain nonetheless, right? And what eventually, at least what I found is like you're not going to fill every moment. There is going to be boredom. Friday nights, and you're sitting there, and it's 75 out, and I'm in the city, and I see people going out and drink, and you're just like, like, no, I'm not gonna do that. And you know what? I might not even be able to adequately fill my time tonight. I might just sit here and kind of watch a documentary. But you then go, so there's gonna be pain, pain of discipline, pain of regret, pain of a panic attack from, drug withdrawal, like literal chemical withdrawal or depression or self-hatred or the things I do when I'm drunk, the mean things I say versus boredom. And you go, boredom is boring, but I'll take that. I'll take that because eventually it gets 9, 10 o'clock, and you're like, I guess I'm just gonna hit the hay. And then we wake up in the morning and it's a new day and you got stuff to do. And so I think what I've tried to do is remove the idea that it's ever gonna be all good. Like there's just gonna be boredom sometimes. There's just gonna be
Right.
like, man, it's I mean literally like last night it's 88 right now. Like last night the sun was setting and it's the 70s and you just hear people, see them at happy hour and stuff, and you're just like, yeah, I think I'm just gonna sit here and kind of watch the sunset. And it's like it's not always a resounding victory. Sometimes
Right.
you just squeak by, you win by 1 point, but it's a win
It's a
nonetheless.
win. And
And
and you can, I mean, I find that in those moments where I don't have anything to do, which because, as I said, I got, five kids and 10 grandkids and 11th on the way, and so we're pretty busy. But in those moments when I don't, those are peaceful moments for me now. And
mm,
I reflect, and what I do a lot during those moments, and you might try this is, there's a creator that created the entire universe, and it's the most powerful force out there. And the yeah, and the more time you can spend, the really weird thing about that force is that that force somehow loves us and wants to know us. And so, which is crazy, right?
mm,
Guy must be just whacked out to like want to spend time with me. Let me see. I'm going to create the universe, and then let's go sit with Wentz.
yeah.
It's like, wow, what a juxtaposition that is. I'm going to create the universe this day, and then I'll go get that little kid from the streets of Baltimore. But that personal relationship can fill a lot of time, and it can fill a
Mm.
great deal of thought, and you can actually receive messages, and you can. Some of my best legal theories in my entire life were deposited miraculously during periods of time in which I was in that state of
Oh yeah.
meditation.
100%.
So it's I fill my time that way, and it works for me, and I find it very beneficial.
I've meditated almost every day since 2008, and it's over the last several years it's kind of transformed into meditation, prayer, like hybrid.
Right?
Um,
Yeah,
oh, but the depositing of ideas, that's not like, some people hear that and they're like, oh, that's new age. And I'm like, hey, as a science-minded guy who graduated, if I can pat my own back, graduated magna cum laude, I published undergraduate research in the field of aquatic toxicology before I graduated. I scored in the 95th.6th percentile on the MCAT. I got into the University of Miami Miller School of Medicine, 15,000 applicants, 100 people got it. You were in New Orleans. I did interview at Tulane. I did not get it, but
soothing.
I'm okay
Yeah,
with that. I don't like the humidity. And as a science-minded guy, 1,000%, when you slow yourself down into that, and you probably could explain it scientifically. But even then, as an aside, it's, science and religion are incompatible. No, it's science is the study of God's creation. And
there.
some people go, I don't believe in God. I'm like, well, you kind of do. You call it the Big Bang. You say it's this thing of
Right,
unimaginable force that it wasn't,
right,
and then it was, and it created everything, and you can't possibly
right.
understand it. I'm like, yeah, I believe in the same thing. I just call it God instead of the Big Bang. But hey, agree
Yeah,
to disagree. That when you slow your mind down, it's peace and it's love and it's gratefulness, but it's also like novel innovation. Ideas I've had for the podcast, that ideas I've had just for my own life or back when I did Photoshop or any of these things, like all the gears start clicking. It is nothing short of like a divine deposit. It's like, hey, here are these
right,
blueprints, and you're like,
right.
I
Go
mean,
do it.
Einstein
Yeah,
talked about it, Tesla talked about it, Steve Jobs talked about it, Elon Musk talks
yeah,
about it, Jeff
yeah,
Bezos in the book Space Barons by Christian Davenport talks about Elon and they both like they're always their big thing is just like 10 minutes of silence before a big dis it's all the same thing. It's just
right.
think here's the play.
Right.
Here's the trick play that's going to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah. And
It's
you
not
wake up, I usually get them at night. I usually wake up with them in the morning and I call them a knowing.
yeah.
I wake up with this sort of knowing. I know it, right? And I mean, some people go, people call them all kinds of things, but I just don't know what to call it. So I call it a knowing. And I just wake up knowing what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
And it is a miraculous thing and it's a wonderful thing. And I highly recommend it to everyone. You know, spend a little time with the creator. He's a cool dude.
Hmm.
Got a great sense of humor because he keeps, letting me live, and so that's got to be nice. And
He is hilarious. God
he
is
is
hilarious.
he is hilarious. He really is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, the more time you kind of spend, like, but that's what I was talking about is like, you know, looking at the sunset like last night. So like one of the things I did was like, having more time, I just started like kind of like walking around the building I live in, and I was like, let me know when like that unit's available. I was like, it's like the same amount of money, but it's got a crazy view. And it just like one day, like the dude who was living here, just I guess after 20 years, was like, I don't want to live here anymore. So that's why I'm moving. I'm in the same building, but point is so I sit out now and I look out at like the clouds and the sun setting behind the mountains, and I mean, it's short of like almost bringing you to tears sometimes. And you sit there and you
yeah,
just look out of it. But when I look at it now, it's just, it's so much more meaningful because I look at it as, you always ask for a sign, God, let me know you're with me or let me know and sometimes you just sit out there and you just see like the birds kind of flying and like the puffy clouds and just the sun rays and everything. And it's just, and then you realize you're asking God for a sign, and He is beating you over the head with a sign, like a metal sign. Mark
right,
McGuire, he's cracking you on the skull, and
yeah,
you're like, he's hitting you, and you're like, give me a sign, and it's like, I don't know
right,
what else
right,
I can do, and
yeah, yeah,
it's you do sit out there, and I'm just like, oh, like this is like God is watching over you, and it is, it's, but I think at least in my experience, there is something about I think Ram Dass would call it getting straight. There's something about kind of removing all of like the chemical adulterants. And this has worked for me. I also don't want to be the guy that's like everyone needs to be sober. Some people handle it and that's awesome. Hey, more power.
right, yeah, yeah,
There's something about removing all of them, at least for a person like me or a person like you, that it's almost like fixing like the rabbit ears on the old television. The image goes zoom, and then it comes in perfect. And you're
yep,
like, oh, the image has always been coming in perfectly. The rabbit ears were messed up though.
right,
And now you go, it's not that God is coming into my life at 33, I'm 34 next month. God's always been here. It's just I've taken all the beer and the pills and the weed. I've taken it all out of the system. I've corrected the ears, and it's like, think there it
right,
is. And
right,
yeah, I'm for the first time, it's less of like boredom and more I'm like, I wonder where this goes next.
right.
It's
Now that's really
anticipation.
cool, and I'm glad to hear that you're doing that. It's good. I applaud the effort, and I agree with you, man. I know people. I mean, I've got friends, I've got colleagues that can drink and they can do whatever they want to do and they handle it, right? But there's a certain like kind of person out there that just is not we're just not designed that way. I think it's I've got a lot of Irish blood in me, and they say that Irish heritage, you're just Jamesons, you're gonna go for it. I mean, I was just in love with bourbon and bourbon and beer, and it was just couldn't handle it. And so it's not everybody, and it's not
Yeah.
everybody has to. And I don't. I
No.
mean, look, it's fine. I mean, the coolest thing about being a drunk was that it ended up bringing me to Christ, and I wouldn't have if I hadn't been totally broken down on my
Right.
knees, sort of face in the mud with his foot on my back going, hey, do you want some more of this, or would you like to maybe surrender,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
finally I'm going, okay, okay,
Stand up. You're like,
this
ah,
320-pound guy,
yeah,
laying in mud, wasting his entire life, screwing up everything. Finally I go, yeah, okay, okay,
yeah,
and then once you've done that, and it's this whole new journey, it's just totally miraculous. So I mean, I did some wonderful things as a young man. Then I had
sure.
sort of that 8 year hiatus of just drunken slobbery. And then through meeting my beautiful bride and having a family, and then moving on, it's been a long time of trying to figure out what is the right thing to do, and how can I, what should I do, and how can I help, and those types of things. So
Yeah, I mean the Irish heritage. I'm Thomas Patrick Carrigan. I mean, I totally get it. Yeah, I mean it's
yeah,
Thomas.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. You'll surrender to the Lord. Like, yeah, yeah.
that's
But
it. Stay away from the Jamesons, laddie.
yeah, I know, right? And that's the other problem is like I can go like a year without drinking and then drink like legitimately drink like everyone I know under the table. That's the other
Yeah,
worst thing is like I mean literally I can like I mean I've sat down in like 12 hours, drank like 36 beers and been like completely coherent. Like something's wrong. But like my
yeah,
point is so but with that, right? And there's what you're saying about is you do kind of need that absolute destruction and turmoil to sort of bring you to the light. Um, because in one sense you realize that no amount of chemicals are ever gonna permanently fix anything. You can
right,
only before you drink so much you can't get drunk anymore. Well, I mean, how many steps until you move to Vicodin, heroin, inject it, fentanyl? I
right,
mean, how far
yeah,
does it go? And then you go, well, that goes to death. And then, but even if you don't go that far, you can look at the road and you go, it doesn't ever work. You do come down. So rationally, it can't work. And then you kind of have the rock bottom moments where, yeah, you can't. I mean, I gained 70 pounds after my brother died. Like, you can't fit in any clothes. Everyone hates you except your mom and dad, and all these things. But what's cool about sort of coming out of it is you have that moment of like, this feels great. You're getting sober, right? Anthony Kiedis, the lead singer of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, talks about in his book Scar Tissue. He goes, you can get addicted to getting sober because that first 2 weeks feels so great. You
yeah,
call
pink
everyone
cloud,
and you're like, I'm changing, and it's everyone's happy and they're like, I'm proud of you. And like you get
yeah,
addicted to that, which is just another drug.
right,
Then you go through the boredom, and the boredom's just like, man, this isn't even. Then you start to lie to yourself. You're like, I like the chaos. I like the self-sabotage. And you go, no, no, no. I think the background of my phone actually is still yeah, it's just a meme, but it's me on my way to a higher timeline after saying no to a pattern that keeps me in chaos, but a comfortable chaos. I know
right,
that I'm drinking. I know I'm gonna ruin a relationship, and then I know I'm gonna claw it back, but you know it and you're comfortable with it.
right,
Once you keep going through these things, you start to realize that you can actually still be like that addict nature of wanting to dive deeper into things, but you can apply it. You can apply
right.
it to reading. You can apply it to philanthropy. You can apply it to helping friends. You can still be you can be like, I'm going to be the best helper I can be. And then it's just instead of like how many beers can I drink, you're like, how many people can I help? And you can
What's
still be
amazing,
that animal.
right? It's what I find interesting in all the years I spent in AA rooms, is the number of really smart people in those
Oh
rooms.
yeah.
I mean, really, I think there's something about an addictive personality, and like drive, IQ, all those types of things. I mean, some really successful. I was in there with judges and things of this nature, and I spent a long time in Miami, and they have some great rooms in Miami. But you take that drive, because why was it that I actually I consistently was the guy. Not only was I going to like beat the other attorneys in litigation in the courtroom, every single time was my drive, right? You don't, you just can't play in that world unless you have that attitude. I'm
Mm,
going to win. I'm going to kick your ass, right?
yeah.
I am going to kick your ass. So then we got to the bar, and you don't drop that attitude. I
No.
am going to kick your ass,
I'm
and
gonna
so
drink
it's like,
more than you,
if you
buy
got a
more
beer, I'm
shots.
drinking two beers, man. If you're drinking it, one shot of tequila,
Yeah.
I'm gonna take two, baby. I
Yeah.
can handle it, man.
Oh
And you
yeah.
get to drive. So then when that's all gone and that whole thing explodes after your total rock bottom moment, and you're broken, and then you got to come back from that. And then if you can, as you say, apply that drive to something of quality, that's when you beat Satan,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Because what he wants you to do is, I'm not drinking, I'm not drugging, I'm miserable. Oh God,
White knuckling it, thinking
white
about it all
knuckling
day, every
sober.
day.
I'm gonna get to go. I love sobriety.
This is
It's
the
great.
first.
I love it. I really do. It's like, no way, baby. That's like not winning. You
No.
gotta have joy, right?
Yeah. 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 You can only
Yeah,
do that for so long because you're
yeah, yeah.
you're redlining it. You
That's why
can't.
people. That's why people come in, come in, and come in, and come in, and come in. It's because they don't get that. They don't get that full dose of the higher power that saves their butt, or they think
Yeah.
the doorknob is a higher power, their truck is a higher power. I've heard all this stuff. So
And it's yeah, if you can come back from that and start to apply it, you start then you start going like, well, man, did I ever really even like alcohol? Like, no, I think I like competition. I like dominating things. I like, you know, I don't and not dominating like I'm gonna force my will on you, but no, I like beating everyone. I like knowing I did it. There's no better
right,
feeling than like breaking the curve in organic chemistry or like doing more push-ups or whatever. It's just if you harness
yeah,
that, you can go live a wonderful life. And it's yeah, no, it is funny. It's like Satan's like gives you this vice and all of a sudden you turn it around and it's like Satan throws like a I don't know, like a wild crazy horse at you and it's gonna come and it's gonna buck you and it's gonna kill you and then you manage to like ride it and then you turn it and then you start pulling a wagon with it and you're like bringing kids to the local doctor and like 1800s whatever and it's like no wait what are you doing, that's the vice, it's
yeah,
supposed to
yeah,
kill you and
yeah,
you're like bringing people to
yeah,
church
yeah,
in like a carriage and it's like
yeah,
no
yeah,
no like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
you don't run away from the horse, it's like horse is following you, what are you going to do with
yeah.
it, and you can do it and like um also it's so you have all this like free time and like so like one of the things I was actually reading about the other day talked about like energy and shipping is like I was just looking at like oil tankers and I'm reading a book right now, The End of the World is Just Beginning by Peter Zihan or Zihan, and talking about sort of right now it's and I mean like global shipping trade and an oil movement and so in terms of like kind of panning to whatever it was we were going to talk about is the the so Zihan or Z his whole hypothesis is that or his argument is that and it's on one hand it's completely apparent 1945 till the present day, it's what I've lived in, it's what my parents have lived in, and even my grandparents were, born in the late 20s. For the most part, it's what they lived in. So it's pretty much everything we know and everyone we know. It's pretty much that paradigm. But in the grand scheme of things, it is such an anomalous blip that a country separated by two oceans has a military force that protects the world's shipping lanes. And for all of America's setbacks, which it does have them, it's not infallible, but it's still the best nation in the world. And I will fight someone to death over that. Is this like relative peace we live in? And it's not peace because we're all holding hands. It's peace because, 13 aircraft carriers is not the norm. It's It's we got a snowstorm in like May here in Maine, which are not totally uncommon, but it normally stops around March. And we got like 20 inches one day in May. It came and then like melted the next day. But now take that 20-inch snowstorm and now let's now expand that to let's say an 80-year period. If you lived in that 80-year period, you'd be like, it's snowing in May. But much like that was one day in May out of 365 days out of, 10 million years, if you looked at it from a zoomed out perspective, you'd go, that's not the norm. That's a bubble that you've lived in. And it's the norm right now, but it's not here forever. His hypothesis is that, or not hypothesis, argument is that we and everyone we know and all of our grandparents grew up in this bubble that is not the norm, and that that bubble is coming apart. And what the US will do, because we can, is we can pull back. You can pull back the empire. You can pull back the foreign 720 bases and use our own resources. And the world will look very, very different. I don't know if there's a question in there so much as that was just something that's, again, with the free time, just reading more and more.
It's
Um,
it's interesting, the hypothesis, and I agree with it, is that this, I always tell people that the experience that we have had in the United States of self-governance is not the norm. It's not the default setting. The default setting is dictatorship. The default setting is everything else but what we have experienced. And um, if the hypothesis is that trying to build an empire, which is what we've been doing since basically the close of World War II, but it really started right around with Teddy Roosevelt at the turn of
mhm,
the prior century. Um, we do not have the right governmental structure upon which to support such an empire.
hmm.
In other words, our Constitution was not built
No.
to support an empire at all. It was built to be a blueprint for independent state governments to come together and cooperate in a manner which allowed a nation to be built at the national level. But as Hamilton said at the Constitutional Convention, he said, we have split the atom of sovereignty. And so we have split all other nations before us, except for Switzerland, had basically a unified government, a king, a tyrant, Genghis Khan.
Mhm,
These are the types of governments. They're ruthlessly efficient. Because they have either one person or a very small autocracy that controls everything and says everything and does everything, and all the little citizens are serfs, and they just go along, right? And that's the form of government that is efficient enough to sustain an empire. You take a government like ours, where we split the atom of sovereignty between the federal government with enumerated powers in Article 1, Section 8 lists, okay, these are the things you can do, Mr. Central Government, right? Everything else is left to a multitude of state and county governments, extraordinarily inefficient. Oh, but then we're worried about the efficiency of even just telling the government that it only has these listed powers in Article 1, Section 8. Let's divide it into three different sections. Let's make Congress, the executive, and the courts, so that we divide and check everything there and make it even more inefficient. But then we're a little worried about Congress and this Senate thing, and why don't we divide it so that they're only elected, in thirds, right? So you could never have an uprising of the
mhm,
popular will and wipe out the entire Senate in one go. You can wipe out the House in one go, but you can never wipe out. Oh, and then okay, all spending bills have to originate in the House. They can never originate in the Senate. And then boom, diddy boom, diddy boom, diddy boom. You get this fantastic Rube Goldberg machine of governance, right? And this was intentionally designed by the folks in 1787 to be inefficient.
a
And
Chinese finger trap for everyone.
it is institutionalized inefficiency
Yes.
to maximize individual liberty, right?
Yes.
We had just seen and defeated, through the grace of God. You want to talk about the grace of God? We had defeated the most efficient, ruthless military machine in the frickin' world at the time, right?
Royal Navy.
Yeah. And so they knew what efficiency was, and they knew how efficient government worked, right? They went, let's make this central government that we're creating, let's give it about a quarter of a horsepower, right? Let's really make it not that way. We can never see this tyranny again that we've just. It's like putting in the Constitution that you cannot authorize spending for a standing army, for an army, for more than 2 years at a time. You cannot put funds forth for more than 2 years at a time, because they wanted to restrict that military force. We were not supposed to be an empire at all. This government is. So can we? The only way that we have sustained the empire, and it happened at the same exact time, is that we started the administrative state with Franklin Delano Roosevelt, right? And the Administrative Procedures Act was passed during his administration. Then we had all these agencies that were stood up with all these experts. So now we have this sort of fourth branch that has been somehow bolted on,
Hmm.
and this is what the Supreme Court is fighting right now, to try to bring us back to our self-governance, our experiment in self-governance that we originally was the original blueprint. We have this administrative state bolted onto it that is unanswerable to anybody, right? It's not elected. The bureaucrats are not elected. They get in there, and the civil service laws make them appointed for life. You can't fire them. You can't change. You cannot. Even the president can't alter course, as we saw with Trump, right? Because the administrative state will fight back so heavily and so harshly to protect its bureaucratic. That type of a government can sustain an empire
Hmm.
because it's not tied to the will of the people. It actually is self-sustaining. At that same time, we got the CIA, we got the intelligence community coming on board. All those things happen during or immediately after World War II. A lot of the laws that happened to allow that to happen took place during
Truman.
TR. Yeah, well, we had the
37.
we had the 16th Amendment in 1916, the 17th Amendment in 1913, and then we had something called the Militia Act of 1903 that took the state militias, which were controlled by the government, by the governors of every single state, and it put them under the control of the federal government. A massive unconstitutional shift of power and military power. Originally, the militia were a key point in checking federal power
Hmm.
because they resided under the governors of various states. So it's interesting if you look at history. Little Jimmy Madison, right? He was the guy that took all the notes during the Constitutional Convention and designed this whole thing. Then he becomes president, and he goes, "I'm a dictator," I mean, he
Yeah.
did all this stuff, and he decides he's going to invade Canada, right? So that was called the War of 1812. So he decides he's going to invade Canada, take over Canada. Yeah, we actually started that war. People think the English started
I
that war.
I never knew that. Here I am
Yeah, we
thinking I'm a
started that
history
war.
buff. I had no
Yeah, yeah,
idea.
we started that. So anyway, and one of the things little Jimmy wanted to do was invade Canada. So he calls forth the militia, as he has the obligation to do, and he has to call it forth from the governors. And the governors go, "Hell no, little Jimmy. We're not sending our boys to Canada. We're not going to invade Canada. You can't have our troops." So you can see how the original Constitution was, and it's still, nothing has changed in these provisions, in these military provisions or militia provisions has changed.
Hmm.
So you wonder, how did all of this, how did all that military force, which is the most important thing, who can hold a gun to your head, right? That's the question we all need to answer: is who are we comfortable having them hold a gun to our head? Well, we had this divided 50 different ways originally. Now, in the Militia Act of 1903 and then follow-on acts on that, they put that whole structure, which was supposed to be answering to the governors to check a tyrannical president, just as the governors checked little Jimmy's invasion of Canada, which never took place, right?
Hmm.
So but now that's all housed in the Pentagon, and they control it all. And this solidification of power is another way when you to go back to your question or your premise about can we sustain an empire? Well, what's happened is we've just amended the Constitution over the years. The Supreme Court has done it. Congress has done it in ways which I say are inconsistent with the original blueprint designed by the framers, as I've just discussed with the militia, for example, right? Imagine if there were militias in Chicago and the citizens of Chicago just all decided that they were going to take,
They're done with shootings. Yeah.
well, they're done with shootings, and so let's all just get together and do, and that's what they were, community organizations of people that just took care of problems, right? And so instead of having, now we go, oh well, what should we do? Oh, the federal government should take care of this problem. No, not really. We're supposed to be self-reliant, independent, and free people, right? We should have, and the methodology for taking care of it is still existing right there. Now they vilified the word militia. You can't say the word militia, but it's in the Constitution. It's never changed. It's
Mm.
all right there, just as it always was. In the old days, you would have had, that's how Andrew Jackson became president, right? The hero of New Orleans. He was running the Tennessee militia during the War of 1812, and he beat the Brits. But that, that's how people, that's how communities took care of their problems.
Mm.
They had people that did these things. They didn't rely on a police force. They didn't rely on the federal government. They didn't rely on all these things. They stood up and fixed the problems. And at some point, Americans have to get back to saying, you know what, this is our country, and we're responsible for this country, and we really shouldn't be just cut out. We need to take responsibility for this country, and we that means that we have an obligation. We have an obligation to do some things. I mean, it's probably not fun to patrol streets in the middle of the night, but
Yeah.
but but if you wanted to resolve, if the community of Chicago wanted to resolve all the shootings in Chicago, there is actually a mechanism probably in the Constitution of the state of Illinois, because almost every state constitution has a militia provision as well. Idaho does. So there is a mechanism for this. It's just it's been maligned and it's been vilified. And so whether it could ever be brought back or not, I don't know. But it is interesting to me when you say about how are we supporting this massive empire, the Pax Americana of which you
Mm.
speak. It's because we have massively changed the original design. We have done that mostly without the participation of the American public.
Mm.
16th and 17th Amendment, okay, amendment process. We had some input from the people there. I disagree with the 17th Amendment. I think it messed a lot of things up. I actually don't like the 16th Amendment much either, the income tax. But 17th Amendment, for those that don't know, was the direct election of senators. They were before they were appointed by the state legislators. So anyway, that's my riff on why we have become an empire. And if you think about where the world would be and all the young lives that would have been saved had we not decided to become this empire,
Mm.
and go into all these foreign wars, as the father of a 27-year-old son, I worry about these types of things. I see Ukraine, I see the terrible withdrawal from Afghanistan. I mean, I'm all for withdrawing from Afghanistan. You needed to do it the right way. Once we withdrew from Afghanistan the way we did, it was sort of the death knell to the Pax Americana, because we showed that we are entirely inept. And then very quickly you get the Ukraine invasion by Russia, because it's like, well, if these jokers can't even pull their own equipment out of
Mm.
Afghanistan, what are they going to do to me if I take over Ukraine? It was sort of like, I'm surprised that she is held off in invading Taiwan,
Mm.
uh, because of this sort of this just inadequate governance that we have going on right now. Now, I'm in favor of bringing all those troops home. I'm in favor of just not having all this foreign intervention. Myself personally, I'm not. I don't think we can sustain it, especially since we don't manufacture anything anymore. I just don't see how it works.
Mm. Can you give me 1 minute so I can go run use the restroom? But I got some more questions.
Okay, well, I'll do the same.
Yeah. All right. Hey, everybody watching. Uh, I have two restrooms in my new place, but one of them is like 10 feet from here, and there's zero sound suppression on the walls. And I wasn't sure how gung ho people were about hearing me use the restroom, so I went to the one downstairs. Trying to think about there he is, the whole empire.
Yo, man,
We're back. Um,
back in action.
I was just thinking,
Uh-oh,
it's not, yeah, it's so it wasn't designed for an empire,
not at all.
but in the same way that you and I are given vices, it's designed to destroy you. It's not designed to turn into something where you do a lot of good work from. It might be that it's not designed to be an empire. And because of that, it became a very attractive place to live, full of liberty and full of, incentive and capitalism. And because of that, by not being designed to be an empire, it became so massive and so economically powerful that there then was major incentive to turn it into an empire. So it wasn't set out for that. For that very reason is why it became one.
That's a very, very good and valid observation. I mean, the all of the decades of free enterprise that allowed us to become a manufacturing base. We took over from the original sort of inventor of the Industrial Revolution, the British Empire. It faded after between World War I and World War II. And then our military might and our industrial might increased dramatically along with our population through both reproduction and immigration. And, we're both talking about, Ireland, right? So I mean, you can't discount the fact that our country was built on from just this massive mixing pot of different types of cultures from so we're coming from everywhere. It's not like we just grew up this. So we have that. We have a lot of immigration. We have an increase in population. We become the manufacturer for the world, right? Then that is where post World War II, particularly when the pound was replaced as the world's reserve currency by the dollar, right? We then become the dominant country.
Hmm.
We become the dominant country economically, and we become the dominant country militarily. So you're right. It was an opportunistic thing, and it was also I think the people that during the 50s, 60s, and 70s that created this were often well intentioned. Because I even think TR was well intentioned. I mean, I disagree with a lot of stuff he did, but he was what a guy. There's a guy I would love to meet. What a dude. But anyway, a lot of these things people say, well, gosh, I don't want to go into another experience where there's a World War I or a World War II back to back. They were pretty close together due to the Treaty of Versailles. And so you have this issue. What do we do? How do we do it? You get guys like Wild Bill Donnelly creating, what became the CIA. You get all
Mhm.
these things, Truman then making officially the CIA. I'm not sure where in the Constitution the federal government has the power to do these things. The problem that I have with it is that what we did is we lulled the public to sleep by good times, right? We're growing. There's economic prosperity. Everybody has a job. Everybody has their head down. Let's go watch the football games. Let's go watch the baseball games. Bread and circuses, right? So, and in the meantime, we get this sort of massive growth of a sort of unelected, life-appointed bureaucrats that, due to the civil service laws, you can't get rid of, that are now running everything for us rather than us stepping up and saying, hey, does that make sense? Do we really like that? Should we make that hard decision? And that's the thing I object to. That we are supposed to self-govern. It might be a good thing that we created it. Certainly for me, it's been a fantastic thing that from the time the Vietnam War stopped until now. And I mean, I'm gonna skate, right? I never had to go to a war in my entire life. Thank God that I avoided that. So the Pax Americana was very, very good to me. It's just that I believe that the people of the United States need to be more involved in these decisions, and that it was designed, these decisions are not supposed to lull the public to sleep and say, that's a good boy, go sit over there, and I'm gonna bring your food and your water. You just wag your tail every morning and I'll pat you on the head. That's how the American public gets treated. We're not actively participating in this stuff. And Congress, even worse, Congress has no incentive to take on the difficult issues because they toss it over to the administrative state. And that way when they're out campaigning, they don't have to address, they can blame an agency instead of them being responsible to the voters for what's going on. And so it kind of just removes the participation of the American public from the whole deal. And that's what I object to. We can maybe we can vote in a Democrat or a Republican. I don't see that big of a difference, honestly. But everybody still spends money like it's going out of style, you know? So I just don't see the participation of the American public the way that the original structure was designed to be. And there's a lot of reasons for that.
The lulling to sleep, bread and shirt, obviously, that's obviously a prevalent idea throughout history. But in relation to what you and I talked about, you kind of have to hit rock bottom. And so, in one way, a vice is good because it almost accelerates the bad times and forces you to come to Christ. Is there's really, but when things are good, there's really no reason to hit that rock bottom, or the things that happen from rock bottom, that humility, the pouring out of the soul, the major course corrections in life, they only come from rock bottom. They don't come from, hanging out at happy hour, talking to a nice looking girl, hanging out with your buddies and everything's fine and your bills are paid. And it's just, why would you? What's the incentive? You have to be at that, face down in the mud in the ditch. To me, it's like, so like when my generation, so I think I'm a millennial technically, born 1990. When my generation, in the same way, my parents, you're always on your phone, and I'm like, and I'm sure your parents were like, you guys are always watching TV, and their parents were like, you guys are listening to the radio, and their parents were like, why are you driving a car? A horse works just fine, and their parents, whatever, it
Yep.
goes forever. So that's not really a val. And just like I'm like, man, this next generation and their haircuts and they're on TikTok. It's like, dude, it's this, shut up. But the other thing, and it's not my idea. I heard a comedian actually say it, Ray Kump, and he goes, I don't mind people like hating the boomers, but he goes, what is bad is people acting like they wouldn't do anything differently. And you could look at it and say, well, no, climate change and finance and foreign wars, and we know that now. But the reality is you would have taken the candy too. If you were born in, 1958, 1959, and you grew up in a post-war boom in a nuclear household with Bretton Woods and economic output, and the rest of the world is still rebuilding after World War II. And by the way, you don't have any knowledge of 2024 backwards, and you don't have the internet either. If you just grew up then, and it's the 70s, you would have done nothing differently. I would do nothing differently. I would be the boomer. That's the thing. Is like, so I think that's my problem with people that are like, with they've destroyed every. I'm like, you would have taken the candy too. And if they were in our spot, they'd be mad at. So it's just what it is. Um,
Yeah.
but my point of that is because things are now, you can be lulled to sleep when it's, you know, what, I'm at, we're in Cambodia, we're in Vietnam, but if you still have, a paycheck, you don't really care. But it's getting to a point now where the not minding the store at home and pursuing empire at all costs, it is now no longer in the realm of people who just want to sit around and bask in how knowledgeable they are. And be like, well, we really need to talk about the democratization of Southwest Africa. It's like that's all well and good when you're sitting at Harvard and you and a bunch of other snooty dudes are on top of an Ivy. Go for it. But it's at a point now where you have the dirty Irish peasants with dirty knuckles, and they're going like, man, my groceries cost twice as much as 2 years ago. What is this? Or and it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Instead of just like, and America is now bombing Syria, you're like, what, under Obama or was it Trump? Or what, when did we hit Gaddafi? Well, the first time we went after him in the 80s, and then we went back, and you're like, you kind of just, it's over there. Now it's like, well, we're changing the draft age or we're reinstating. And it's like, well, for what? And it's like, well, we might be fighting Taiwan. All of a sudden, you're like, wait, well, hold on. What do you mean? Like, wait, what? And I'm 33 and all my friends are like, selective service ends at 26. I'm like, yeah, on paper, if a world war kicks
Right.
off, I'm pulling anyone that has a pulse. And if you
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
physically fight, you're going to be going and you're going to be doing, map analysis, or you're going to be screwing
Right.
on artillery caps with Rosie the Riveter. Like, shut up. The point
Right.
is so much like the face down in the ditch. You don't say anything when you're on an outdoor deck on happy hour. You're like, why would I get sober? It's getting to a point now where we almost have to address empire because it's no longer
I think so.
a thing over there.
Right. And the other thing that's happened is that we've had, just as our empire came at the cost of the British Empire, Pax Americana and the American Empire is sort of due to basically Bill Clinton is handing off um, our empire to China, right?
Hmm.
So we have the rise. It's not as if we can look at this in total isolation. It was that we invested heavily in our military, and we felt like we had to patrol the whole world because we had Russian empire,
Hmm.
and if it wasn't for mutually assured destruction, we felt that the whole world could go up in flames, in nuclear flames. And so now, you know, that empire has sort of fallen, and the Soviet Union broke up. But there's a Bill Clinton allowed China into the WTC after he was bribed by Chinese businessmen to put money into the Clinton Foundation, and then that single act started what, I don't know if you remember Ross Perot, but he used to talk about a giant sucking sound.
Yeah,
That it didn't go to Mexico. I mean, a little bit went to Mexico, but the major giant sucking sound went to China. And
industrialization.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, and so all the manufacturing in the whole wide world is now taken on over there, and the economy is massive, and the people are massive. It's 1.4 billion people. And so, how do we continue our 330 million folks here in the United States, despite the fact that we have a much better system, all these things, and we're, like you said, I agree, greatest country in the world. I've been everywhere. I've seen it all, and it is. I'm always so pleased to get back home. But China is on the rise. Can we sustain it? How much are we willing to sacrifice to do it? Can we hold it together with this quarter horsepower government that I described, right? Even with the bolted on administrative state, can we do it? I'm not sure, and I think that we really have to consider these types of issues. And what I wish we would do is consider them as a nation through discussions and through thoughtful debate rather than through just not even participating. And I do think that with all the things that are happening, rapid inflation, the loss of the manufacturing base in America, the loss of blue collar jobs, the massive immigration, the fentanyl crisis, all of these types of things, it's going to come to a head here. I think we see it. I think one of the reasons Trump is so popular is because he naturally sort of intuitively sees these hot button issues, and I wish he could express them more articulately. I wish he would develop his policy statements in a more coherent manner, because I think he could.
Yeah.
A lot of those policies came from the Reagan administration, and we developed actual position papers and things, and we developed communications, talking points, all those types of things to push those out to the American public. There's a blueprint that the Trump administration could follow to achieve this end, but they're not, or at least they didn't last time. But if it, maybe now is the time where we as a nation come together and address those issues. I hope so, because we can't keep doing what we're doing. I mean, we can't keep with 31 trillion in the official recognized debt. For my 5 kids and 10 grandkids, that's just totally unfair. That and I don't want to get rid of that debt through scrambling the eggs with a massive world war, which is how it's been done in the past. I don't want to see that happen. I think we need to actually avoid confrontation with China, and that's 1.4 billion people over there, and a lot of technology and a lot of money.
I don't want that to happen either, but I think it's what will happen. And I always try to separate because sometimes I say things on the podcast and you just see people melting down in the car. Well, why would you? And I'm like, there's a big difference between what I think will happen and what I want to happen, and that just goes for life in general. This is what I want to happen. I want to just wake up one day and be sober. Here's what I think will happen. It's probably going to be a long, dirty, painful, unimaginably painful process. You think you know terror, and you're like, oh, God. But then you do it and you go through it and you get through the other end.
Yeah.
There's what I want to happen, and then there's what I think will happen. And I don't think this ends in any other way but a
Well, I hope you're wrong.
so do I. Well,
That's gonna be a really, really rough because
I
go ahead
think they
though.
want it. I think they want the threat of World War III. I think what we are intentionally orchestrating, which is just a dance on the head of a pin. I think we're trying to orchestrate a second Cold War, and I've thought that for a while because I mean, objectively, if you're in, maintenance of empire, it's a lot easier when you got a giant book, and not a boogeyman like Bin Laden, where he's running around in caves. It's like, no, you want a Soviet Union. They're putting nukes in space, and you want. I think they want an East-West empire. You want to take the entire EU, everyone that wasn't paying their share in NATO, and you want them to, suck back up. All of a sudden, you want them to start inviting America World Police back at the table. And I think it's also beneficial for us to go to war with the people we owe money to. Why wouldn't you?
Yes.
If
Yeah.
I took a loan, what I would, and I always talk about this, is if I went to a loan shark, if I found whatever local mafia is in this city, and when I went and got money from their loan shark, I'd take as much money as I could, and I wouldn't worry about their muscle men, their idiot, lugs, because what I would do is I would get in touch with like the Delta Force operators I've met through this podcast. I would pay them and still be able to pocket some. And I'd be like, send your men, I'll kill them all. If I was a psychopath and I was just worried about power and not, the loving light of Christ. But the people in control are psychopaths. I think what they're doing is we just got an awesome loan from China. We've run it for 50 plus years, built up a pretty good military. They're getting a little cute right now. They're trying to throw around their weight. Time to wipe it out. I really think that's what's happening. I think we're doing a slow buildup. I think that's what the war in Ukraine is about getting the EU back on a war footing. I think that's what Gaza, Israel. I think that plays in perfectly to delineated lines. Ukraine, Russia, China, or Israel, terrorists. Taiwan, they make computers. It's an island. They're innocent. Big bad China. I think we're just trying to just take a marker just right across the globe and good, bad. Cold War ran from what? When was the Berlin airlift? Wasn't that the rough start? What was that 49,
Yeah.
50?
That was Kennedy was the Berlin
Berlin.
airlift. Yeah.
What started with what under I think no, I think Truman said in his journal that he thought the invasion of the Koreas, the war in Korea in 1950,
Right.
that's what he thought was the beginning of World War III.
Right.
Whenever Churchill's quote, an Iron Curtain has descended.
Right.
So let's
62, I think, was Churchill's speech where he said Iron Curtain.
so
I
let's just go with
maybe not.
the first Soviet A bomb, 1949.
Yeah.
219, we'll call it 91. What is that? 42 years?
Right.
That's a pretty big band-aid. You can go 42 years and it's not like a 1 year solution. You go that could take care of things for the foreseeable future. And then if you're looking at it, you're going and they'll figure it out in the 90s. Well, now we're in the future. I think what we want is like a multi-decade uh Cold War.
Well, I think if I mean the official position of the Trump administration was containment, right? I mean, the guy that had that policy actually wrote a book on it, and it's just trying to contain China um, to where it is and not allow it to get out of whack, take over the Philippines, for example, or Japan or whatever. Um, the difficulty is the if we we have so many challenges, as you said, we are kind of like I was down with my face in the mud, 320 and like at the rock bottom right now. I mean, we're staggering around like a drunk as a country. I mean, we've cut off access to our currency through sanctions to about half the world. And I mean, if you want to be the reserve currency, then the one thing that people need to be able to do is use your currency.
Mm.
And if we're not the world's reserve currency, then we can't continue to sustain the debt that we have amassed. And I was in China and I was negotiating a transaction between CNOOC, Chinese National Offshore Oil Corporation, on the one side, and Bashneft, which was a state-owned Russian oil company, on the other. This was 2007 through 10 kind of era. It was back and forth between China and Russia all the time. And I had my Ministry of State Security team on me in Beijing all the time. And they were with me all the time,
Mm.
everywhere I went. And they would get drunk. I didn't drink. They tried to get me drunk to pump me for information by showing me how to get drunk. And then they would just let slip everything that they were going to do. So it was what they would say all the time is everything that we do is long term, but you are the prime enemy, and everything that we do is designed to take you down.
Uh-huh.
And one of the main things that they wanted to do to take us down was to replace us as the reserve currency with the yuan so that we couldn't continue to print endless bonds, and that there was economic warfare because it's unrestricted warfare with them. It's anything that hurts us, anything that makes a cut. It doesn't matter. Fentanyl, pulling people across the southern border that are here now in our country, ready to go. Special forces guys from China. They're doing all those things simultaneously, undermining our sense of purpose as a nation. All of those things are written down and they're doing them. And these guys used to talk to me about them. And so as I see it happening, I know that that's what's happening. And so we were ill prepared for World War II. We were ill prepared for World War I, but we rallied as a nation. And we have this way of coming back. We have this way of rallying, and it's a wonderful thing to think that we will be able to do it. But my goodness, why do we have to let ourselves get so weak and so messed up before we decide to pull together and rally? And given the given the sort of tens of millions of new residents in our nation that don't have the history or the sense of history that you and I may have, or even the sense of belonging that we may have, getting the consensus built as a nation to do the right thing is much harder than it's ever been. So we have the division, the political division. We have the economic, the inflation, the massive debt. All those types of things are in one side of the scale. And what is it that we have in the other side right now? I mean, we don't have the manufacturing base, we don't have the skilled workforce, we don't have the types of things that I think we have had in the past. We've let ourselves go, and we really do need. I think we really need to look at all these issues in a way that is just practical.
Mm.
If we could somehow divorce them from all the political warfare that's going on right now, and say, is there a pragmatic way to make the nation better and address these gigantic problems that we have? I don't hear that voice out there. Maybe Bobby Kennedy, but I don't hear. I just don't hear a voice pushing for that type of thing, and it saddens me.
I think that's probably like, that's one of the other sides of of a free country is you don't have that tyrannical, this is what we're doing. If they're not feeling the flame, if they're not smelling the smoke, they're like, yeah, I'm not leaving. I don't care if the fire alarm's going on. That's
But you
just
have
that's
that
kind
voice of reason right now.
you can have the voice of reason, but even then,
I don't see it. I
until
wish there
people
was a voice of reason out there at least saying this stuff,
yeah.
Guys, we're one nation. Guys, we have a common purpose. Guys, we need to come together. Guys, we need to stop, you know, we need to stop attacking each other every single day, and there are things we need to do to work together as a team if we're going to stay together as a nation. And I just don't hear those. I hear Donald Trump is the devil. I hear, Biden is an old pile of crap. I hear, this is the type of stuff that we've been reduced to, and it's not going to work in the long run. My kids are going to suffer, and I hate to see it.
I mean, discussing China and unrestricted warfare and the 100-year marathon. I think one of the things they would do is, if not or sow division, they would also, I would imagine, put people in positions of power and influence in social media corporations to make sure that these voices talking about how we need unity would get suppressed, and the fringe voices that talk about how we need a civil war would be amplified to the point where there might be those voices of wisdom, and the vast majority of people could very well be feeling like, hey, why are we all fighting? But then you realize, well, we are in the fog of war. And they want you to think that. Now, it could be that we are truly at each other's throats and no one's being wise and detached, but I would imagine that there's a lot of that going on. I mean, I don't know. Have I think I've maybe had like one physical run in, like in my actual vicinity on the surface of this earth to another human being who seemed a little unhinged. That like I had like an American flag on my shirt. I had like it's a Trump or something. It's like a t-shirt someone sent me. I was wearing it, and oh no, it was a guy I've had. It was a doctor I've had on who's a rheumatologist, and he worked in like a random position in Trump's White House, one of like 10,000 people
Right.
doing it. And he published a book. And, if you're a doctor and, you get to go to the White House, regardless of what you did, yeah, you'd slap that on your resume. It was working in the White House. So would I. Why wouldn't you? And so it was a shirt, and on the back it was a picture of the book. It was like a promo shirt from a book that came out years ago. They like sent me an old one, and I just like wore it to the pharmacy one day. And on the back, there's like small is a book, and even smaller on it, it's like, doctor from, Harvard Med School and worked in, and like some like fat like pink mohawk lady at like some, not a pharmacist, like another customer made a
Yeah.
comment. That's the only person I have physically seen in my, sure, you see videos all the time, but I mean, if you go by
Yeah.
then sure, you look at videos of I don't know, skirmishes in Vietnam and be like, oh, that's here. So my point is like, I don't doubt that there's true division and true insanity and true radicals on both ends of the spectrum. But if you held a gun on my head and said, how many have you seen in your real life, and put a lie detector on, I'd go, I've one. I've seen. Do you live out on a farm? No, I live in a city.
Yeah.
I've seen
When I
one.
I agree with you. When I travel around, I mean, it seems to me like everybody is just moving along. Everybody's fine. Everybody's friendly. You go to the airport, where it's not is in our leadership. That's the problem.
Sure.
And I think we need somehow, we need to do a lot better in who we get up there on Capitol Hill so that they can work together and be pragmatic and solve problems. And I'm not seeing it happen. And I
Hmm.
think part of it is, as I said, is that they just punt. They can
Sure.
do their warfare, and then they punt everything to the administrative agencies to try to solve all the problems, and then we end up back where I started.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think it's as things become worse, there will be a response. And I don't want it to be that, but and then there's also, you know, it might not all be that, it's like the military industrial complex is orchestrating all of it. I mean, it might be that China is very, it might not be all propaganda. I'm sure there's a ton of propaganda, but it might not all be propaganda. They might actually be an evil I mean, that they have 2 million Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps. Like they have those, but the reason we don't hear about it is because they make our iPhones. So we don't talk about it. But in the same reason you don't talk about kids in cages under Obama, but you talk about them under Trump, but then you don't talk about them under Biden, is because it's politically expedient. So I mean, it might be that they just, and are we going to benefit from it? Sure. And we probably are going to lubricate that path to war. But I mean, But it also comes down to like you also just have to be very realistic and like remember that, we are animals. We still have, we have teeth. We still bare our teeth when we're angry. You show your jugular, eye dilation. We are still, I mean, sure, we shave and we have air conditioning, but we are animals. And I don't mean that in like a derogatory way, but just know what we are, right? You don't plug into a wall. You still got to go eat carbs and proteins and fats and multivitamins and water. And you got to like we are animals, and we are animals on a planet that is harsh and unforgiving, resource scarcity, and the agricultural revolution is only 10,000 years in the rearview mirror. Like we are in many respects still in a global jungle, and we might not like the idea of empire, and we can sit around and talk about it. But the harsh reality is we still live in a world where the only universal language is force, and where if you don't run it, someone else will. There's
Yep.
no, who do you want to have the gun to your head? It's, well, me and George talked, and we both agreed that we don't want a gun to each other's heads. No, 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 no. One of you has to hold the gun.
Yep.
Well, I'd rather hold it because I know I'm not going to shoot you, but I'd rather hold it and not have one on my head. And if I need to, if you turn on me, I can take you down. I'd rather have that than have one on my head and be at you. So it's also like, well, we don't want empire. It's like, okay, show me where in world history that all the bleeding countries were just like, you don't want empire? I don't want empire. Kumbaya. No, no, no. It's constant usurping. It's coups. It is power vacuums being filled. So who do you want to run it? Do you want China with concentration camps, a surveillance state that the NSA can only dream of, and, Foxconn factories with nets outside so the employees can't kill themselves? Or the United States for all of our flaws, or the United States? I'd rather it be us. And that's easy for me to say because I'm not in the military. I don't have kids. It's easy for me to say. And I don't want to be someone who's just a war hawk with, it's like, well, that's a guy that has no dog in the fight. I understand that. But I also just have to be very honest with myself and be like, you think China's just gonna shake hands and we'll share the first place podium with each other? You think any country's gonna do that? No, they're gonna kill you. And why wouldn't they? That's a sticky situation. Is then like, I don't
Yeah,
know.
there's not a good answer to that question. I
No.
mean, and especially the thing is that I think that if we one of the things that we don't make use of all that often because we don't need to anymore because we just leave it up to the Supreme Court to make all these changes or as I've said, we've amended the Constitution without amending it all the time, right?
Mhm.
But if we decided that what you said is correct and that we wanted to do that, it would actually be a good idea for that discussion to take place, these alternatives to be somehow presented, and then we could create a system that would support such a empire.
Hmm.
What the difficulty is that I always find frustrating is that we have a system of government and architecture for the government set forth that actually is on purpose extraordinarily inefficient. And then we're trying to get it to do everything. Now, could we, if all we wanted to do was just create a military, it wouldn't be that hard to put some amendments forth that would make it easier, and we could probably do it. And if we wanted to devote our resources to that, we could do that. The problem is that we can't do everything at once. We can't do all the social welfare programs. We can't do all the things we're doing. And this is what brought down the British Empire was that you can't support this massive foreign military all over the world, um, and at the same time have all these massive social welfare programs. So we would you need to make choices, and the problem is that the choice we make is, yeah, I'll take it all. It's like, here's the smorgasbord. What part of this do you? I just want the whole freaking smorgasbord, guys. I just want it. Okay, well, right now maybe you can do that. You got the reserve currency thing. You can issue endless debt. You're issuing endless debt, but at some point, and my feeling is we're about there. I could be wrong, but my feeling is we're approaching the time when we're going to have to actually lay these alternatives on the table. I mean, I think you make an eloquent argument for the idea that Pax Americana was a good thing. I told you my personal opinion that because I never had to go kill anybody,
Sure.
Pax Americana for George Robinson Wentz Jr. was a really good thing, right? So I'm all in on world peace. I like it. Um, the question is, you know, do we have the right structure to support such an empire? And the answer is really not. And that's why when you get a guy like me that's a history buff and a constitution buff and all those types of things, I keep looking at it and going, okay, well, there's a miss here, right? And that miss is what's gonna create the unsustainability of it, I think. And then we have to ask the question, well, do we really want to be the type of government that has successfully sustained an empire in the past? Because those are almost uniformly, look at the Empire of the Sun. I mean, that was the emperor. I mean, I am God here on earth, right? You get, do we really want to have somebody at the helm who claims to be God here on earth? Do we want to have a little oligarchy that runs things? How do we want to do it? Because if we're going to do it, we may as well do it right. But the predicate step would be, which we never really addressed as a nation, is this really what we want to do? You know, it's been sort of handled by the intelligence community to a large extent under the scene, under the behind the curtain, so to speak. I like the American people being involved. I
Sure.
like I like self-governance. I want to see the people make the choice. And I am a guy. I mean, if the people make the choice and we go through the process and we follow it, then I'm a team player. I'll get in. I'll get all behind it. I'll make my arguments the best I possibly can. And but at least then it's not just a fait accompli, and we're the golden retriever that comes out for the food and the water and the wag of the tail and the pet on the head. And that's what we've been. I think that's what we've been for years.
And I know nothing about this, and I guess I'm in luck because I have you here. But isn't something like the Chevron case? Wouldn't that be an indicator that there is a slow pushback against the kind of national security apparatus, administrative state, fourth branch kind of
Yeah.
parasite?
This court, there's 6 members of this court that I think are trying to push back against the administrative case and the Chevron ruling, which said that where there's an ambiguity in a statute, Chevron said, where there's an ambiguity in a statute, the agency that is interpreting that statute, the court has to accept that interpretation, right? So it's giving deference to the agency to even have a much, much broader, and it's separating out from what I call self-governance an even greater step, right? It's more power to the administrative state, as you say. So overturning Chevron the other day, that was a huge step forward. That's something that I've been advocating for years. Most people don't know that the Chevron case, the Chevron deference, actually came in when the Reagan administration was trying to clip the wings on the EPA. So it was originally designed to pull back the administrative state, and it was Reagan's guys that were making the ruling, right? That's how that first happened, and what it shows you is the concentration of power goes both ways. If you want to be efficient, the good guy, you can have a really wonderful benevolent dictatorship is probably not a bad thing, right? Depending on the benevolence of the dictator, right? But dictatorship in general, it just means that you've concentrated all that power in one thing, so it can be massively, ruthlessly efficient for either good or bad. So it's just all who gets to make those decisions. And what we've done as a nation is we've bifurcated it, we've structured, we've scattered it, throughout the whole country. And now what's happened over the course of time is that it's all been concentrated in Washington, D.C. So, yeah, Chevron's good. I see a lot of good things happening at the Supreme Court level, actually, you know?
I mean, are we? And I should. I mean, I should know more. I guess in terms of like the what I know about history is like primarily like World War II and the Cold War, and I'm trying to push farther and farther backwards in time and learn more and more and more. And so I should know more, but I don't. But do you think that? I mean, is there a chance that we're on the Roman Republic to the Roman Empire, which admittedly I know next to nothing about, but I know that there was the transition, and the latter lasted a lot longer than the former. Are
Right.
we on the verge of going full empire? Like we think we've seen empire, and it might actually be like, no, this is just an 80-year warm up. Like we're about to go. I mean, maybe we might, in a century might like look back and be like, yeah, for the first 250 years, America, they used the idea of a president, and after X, Y, and Z, and almost a thermonuclear war with China, we realized that wasn't the way to go, and now we have, I don't know, a monarch or a king, and I'm not saying these are good ideas. I'm just saying, what do I think will happen, or more so, I'm asking you, what
Well,
do you think will happen? Are we on the verge of going full empire?
it could be that we're on the verge of going to an autocratic form of government. I think that there's a big push for that. Um, and I think what normally happens is, we started off by saying we've had this long run of democracy, right? Being a representative democracy or a republic for a long, long time with a lot of freedom, a lot of liberty, speech. We can have these conversations, which in some nations we could not. So all those things are good. What normally happens is that's not your default switch. That's not where things normally go. What happens is you get chaos. At some point, society breaks down. The order of society breaks down. Venezuela is a great sort of example of this because it was a pretty good democracy. Um, PDVSA was one of the best oil companies in the world. They had natural resources. They elected Hugo Chavez, and in short order, it went into chaos and it went into dictatorship, right? And now Maduro, for the longest time now, has been a dictator in Venezuela, which is why we have so many people coming to our country from fleeing Venezuela. But that's the normal course of events. Could that happen here? It happened very quickly in Venezuela. It could happen here very quickly as well. Jefferson said the final check in the checks and balances is the citizenry of the United States. And so one of the reasons that I do podcasts like this is I like to educate people on how our government works and the responsibility of the citizens of the United States to participate in it. And I worry that people don't understand the power that they have in our system. And if they don't assert it, then obviously they give that power up. So, so yeah, it could go there. I don't think that people would stand for it. Um, I think, unfortunately, what would likely happen is that there would then be either a negotiated sort of breakup of regions in the country, because I just don't think there's vast areas of the United States where I just don't think anyone would accept that result, and it could happen, but I doubt it would happen easily, right? There would be a lot of pushback. But I think because we're entering into an era of where we're facing and we're not addressing massive problems, that there is likely something going to happen in the next 5 years or so, maybe longer. Um, but there will be an event we'll either come together and decide to overcome and reunite as a country, and the sort of toxic culture will have to diminish, or it will go the other way, you know. And going the other way and going into chaos almost always results in a tyrannical form of government coming to pass. And I do think that there are powers in the world that would like to push us towards a sort of more like the government that the CCP has. I think that there is a there is a large intelligentsia that believes that we cannot self-govern and that we don't have a right to self-govern, and that we should be a sort of a technocracy, right? And this is really the model that the CCP has implemented. Um, and I think that there's a lot of people in power that believe that that would be better for the world over, right? They believe that they could address global warming better. They believe that they could address food better, the overpopulation better, whatever the agenda is that you think that the World Economic Forum and the globalists have. If America had the same government structure as China, it would be far easier to get it done because they wouldn't have to be addressing this they wouldn't need to worry about 50 state governors. They wouldn't need to worry about all the stuff that they need to worry about in the United States to really get a total takeover. They could just get it done. So I see, COVID was an interesting case study where all the nations in the world did the same thing, except for like Sweden, and very few places didn't go along. That was pushed really heavily by massive cooperation by the intelligence communities of the world. And I think what has happened is that the intelligence community of the United States is actually more comfortable dealing with the intelligence community of China, Russia, etc., because they're in the same fraternity, so to speak.
Mm.
And that they are less, I mean, those guys would probably be more comfortable dealing with their counterparts in other intelligence communities than they would be sitting in a bar in Baltimore, Maryland, eating crab
Talking to
cake.
you or I, yeah.
Right, exactly. So you get this sort of professional cooperation. That's the only way I can explain how that happened. And that's where I see the threat, the real threat. And you said you framed it up just perfectly. Could this be the moment where we go from the republic, the Roman Republican form of government, to Caesar coming in and taking over and having a dictatorship? And I think there are forces that would like to see that happen.
I think it will happen,
Boy,
and
I hope you're wrong.
so do I. Just
Boy, I hope you're
again, not
wrong.
because I think it will, not because I want it to. Just
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
just what I
Listen, I say I'm glad I'm 66 with high cholesterol. You know what
I
I'm
see,
saying?
and well,
It's
that's
like
what
it's like
and I
I
get.
don't want to be here to see that, man. I don't want to know what I would do.
The average age of my guests are about double my age. I'm like 99. I'm not even kidding. Like 99+%. They're all like 30 years my, and they're all kind of like, man, I'm glad I'm pushing. I'm pushing, and I'm always like, thanks, but I am here, so I have to
Yeah,
think about
yeah,
these and discuss them.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but and then
By the way, I've got to go at 11 o'clock.
oh yeah, shit. What time is it?
It's 10:56.
Oh yeah, we'll wrap it up. I was gonna go and meet. What I was gonna say is I think it might happen. I think you might have like a military slash right wing slash Donald Trump-esque coup. And I think you'd have a lot of people on the right who would be the ones that are probably most likely to ever fight back, gun ownership, rural kind of nuclear family. I think you would have them quelled because it would be our guy pulling off, cooing against a place that had open borders, gender affirming surgeries on minors, foreign wars. So I think you'd have the people who are just like the kind of the novelty of Donald Trump is you have the left who is traditionally the most free speech at all costs. You now have them calling for the censorship of free speech.
Censorship.
Well,
Yeah.
how would you get the right, a bunch of gun-owning, liberty-minded people to allow an autocratic leader to come in? You'd have it be Donald Trump, and you have it be against the evil left. What I really think is going on is behind that, behind the left being for the censorship of free speech, and behind the right willing to put their guns down and allowing a tyrannical government to come in. I think it's all kind of a dog and pony show. I think they're probably all tendrils of the same monster that is consolidating power. That's what I think it is. And so it would seem like it's a good thing, but the reality is that the people pulling the Trump coup off against the current communists in charge, it's all the same monster, which then comes down to the big picture of like, well, then is it all screwed? And it's, yeah, and I think you're here to fight against evil and become the best person you can, despite there seemingly being impossible odds at success. It's what do you do in the face of imminent death? Is do you still stand? It's again, it's easy to, it's easy to talk about sobriety one day when you're sitting at a happy hour. It's a lot harder to talk about it when you check yourself into a psych ward. So,
Yep.
in theory, in short, the whole world is probably destined for failure and hellfire, but I also think that's why we're here. I think we're here too.
Yeah.
The Delta Force Navy SEAL selection, they're designed to break you. They're not designed for you to win. And
Right.
whoever survives the breaking wins. So I think the Earth is a sort of gym, and there is no winning. You're just supposed to become as strong as you can, and then that's whatever happens this. Maybe after this, you graduate and you become a saint or an angel. I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. But that's my theory on it. But I'll let you go. We'll
I will
definitely do
tell you,
another one.
I agree with the analyzing everything from the standpoint of does it consolidate power and who benefits from that
Precisely.
consolidation of
Pre-
power is the exact right
Precisely.
paradigm.
Who's follow the money? More than that, follow the power.
Follow the power. Follow the
Yeah.
power.
And
Hey,
that's,
listen, Tommy, it's really great to meet you. I'm glad,
yeah, man.
Boz. If you're looking, thank you for introducing us. Boz is like one of
Bass
my
is the best.
favorite guys. He's an incredible
He's
man.
the coolest dude in the world.
Yeah, his. I always tell people like, well, if America had a James Bond,
It's Baz.
his name would be Basil Boz.
It's Baz.
You know?
1,000% Baz. Baz is my inspiration to like be the best person I can.
Yeah, no,
Um,
he's a great guy.
so
All
yeah,
right, thanks.
yes, sir. We'll wrap this
Great
up.
to meet you.
You as well. We'll do another one. Thank you for your time,
Okay.
man. And guys, thank you for watching, and thank you, Mr. Wentz, for being the first guest in the new podcast studio. So thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
in the George Robinson Wentz Jr. Memorial.
Yes, sir. We'll get a 900-pound bronze bust.
On a plaque. All
Yeah.
right.
All right, man.
Thanks,
Take
guys.
care. Thank you so much, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching.